All right, so I'm just going to run through how to use a Venn diagram to find a missing piece of information. Just one or two things to be careful of when you're drawing a Venn diagram when given information like this. And then I might just run through the different regions of the Venn diagram, how to describe them using the kind of set notation, the symbols that we have, and then how to describe them in English as well. So 75 people were asked how they travel to work. 43 said they use a car. 60 said public transport, and 30 said both. So draw a Venn diagram to represent this information. So I'm going to draw a circle for car. Just if you are drawing the second circle in the Venn diagram, a good idea to draw it kind of from the center here, from the intersection, because that way you'll make it nice and big and you'll be able to fit anything in there that needs to go in there. So second circle then for public transport. So let's put this information on. 30 people said they use both. You'll always fill out a Venn diagram from the middle, from the intersection. So that 30 is what goes on first. Now, the next thing is something you need to be very careful with. So 43 said they use a car. So it is very, very easy and tempting to put 43 into this bit here. Okay, but if you read this carefully, it says 43 said they use a car. The people who use a car is this entire circle here, C. There is already 30 people in that circle. So you are looking to make that entire circle add to 43. So you're going to put the number in here that makes the entire circle add to 43. So 43 take away the 30 that are already in there means 13 over here. Okay, same thing then when it says 60 said they use public transport. So that entire public transport circle needs to add to 60. There's already 30 in there. So 60 take away this 30 means 30 over here. Okay, now if you made that mistake of putting 43 in there and 60 in there, if you had 43 in that bit, and 60 in that bit, and 30 in that bit, you'd find it adds to 133. And it says in the question that 75 people were asked. So if you did that, if you made that mistake of putting 43 in there and 60 in there, just by looking at it and adding those three numbers together, you should realize that you've made a mistake and something's going to rise somewhere. Okay, so like I said, I'm flagging that as a big area where people slip up sometimes. So just watch out for that. Now, 75 people were asked, how many people do I have on my correctly done Venn diagram here? It's 30 plus 30 plus 13. I've got 73 people. So 75 people were asked. I've only got 73 on the Venn diagram. So there must be two people that don't use a car or public transport to get to work. So I'm going to do my universal set. And I'm going to put two people out there. Okay, so draw a Venn diagram to represent this information. I have done that, and then I think by doing the Venn diagram in full, I have answered this second part. So how many people don't use cars or public transport to get to work? It's 2. Okay, so as I said, just watch out for that. Don't just go lashing that 43 into the Venn diagram if you've already got a bit in the intersection, and then just look out for anyone who should be outside of the universal set at the end. Now, that's kind of the how to draw these things. I just want to revise the different ways of naming the different regions in the Venn diagram and then describing them as well. So the 30 people in here, that would be C intersection P. Okay, so C intersection P. And if you are asked to describe that, it would be the people who use both a car and public transport to travel to work. So the key word when you are describing that intersection is both. Whatever the question is about, you want to get that word both in. Okay? The 13 out here, so these are the people who only use a car. Okay, so if you're describing that, I would say car only. So describe those people as the car only region. Okay, if you're describing it, these are the people in C who are not also in P. So using our set symbols, that is, let's just switch to the black pen, C, not P. Okay, so if they're in C but they're not also in P, they're not in this bit here. Okay, so that would be C, not P, and car only is the way to describe those 13 people. So only is the key word to get in. This 30 over here, so how do I describe them? Well, in words, it would be public transport only. So again, only is the key word for these bits over here. And if you're asked to do it using set symbols, or if you see these symbols, this is people who are in P who are not in C. So that is P, not C. Okay, so in the middle here, intersection symbol, and the key to describing them is both car and public transport. Over here, they're in C, but they're not in P, so C, not P. I would describe them as people who travel by car only, only being a keyword there. The 30 here, people in P, but not in C, so P, not C, and public transport only being a keyword to describe them. Some other regions then on the Venn diagram. So everyone in C and P. So these 13 people, these 30 people, these 30 people. So the 73 people who are on that Venn diagram in the two circles in total, they would be C union P. So that's the 13, the 30, and the 30. And if I was describing them, a slightly trickier one to describe, I would say car or public transport or both. So car or public transport or both. Okay, it's a harder one. It's not as easy to describe as some of the other regions, but I think that's the clearest way to describe it. I think some people might say car and public transport, but I don't think that's quite as clear as this. So I think that's how I would describe C union P. The only kind of bit of the Venn diagram that I haven't described is the person out there in 2. So if I describe them, so they're inside the universal set, but they're not in C union P. So the kind of, probably the quickest way of kind of describing them in set notation would be C union P, so these people, complement. Okay, so remember this complement thing means everyone except C union P. So the only people in that diagram who aren't in C union P are these 2 people here. Okay, if you're describing them, it's people who use, or people who travel using neither car or public transport. Okay, so the bit I've done at the end here with the descriptions, that's not asked for in the question that I started out answering, but I do think it's good revision of these. And this can come up kind of, you know, how to describe different regions, and the set notation would come up, the symbols come up a fair bit as well.